What was that?
Literally come at 6:45 and leave at 6:45. And you get there actually literally, well, some people of a certain age, and all of a certain age, right? They're not the person to check it 20 times a day.
Right, that's true. What?
Nothing. Cold and miserable. Don't expect to see a lot of people, I guess.
It's not the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, how many were there?
Well, yeah, it looked normal. 20, 25 people.
Okay.
Just have to see that many in this room.
I know.
So what's new? The bar mitzvah on September 2nd, Benjamin Borkin. And then it says out of town.
That's they're coming in from.
They're coming in to you, Shalom. Okay, I'll do that. I'm gonna make that.
This is a kid who's right in his book.
Okay.
They belong to somebody. This is the one that you were CC'd on these emails with Tamar.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. Okay. I'm getting back to that now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a note.
What's new, Paul?
Nothing very much.
Nothing much.
That's all right.
Yeah, no news is good news.
Are the books inside?
Yeah, there are books, I believe, I hope there are, can we see?
I don't think there's gonna be many people.
Why is that? Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of cold out.
No, it's warm out.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It's like 50.
I did a funeral in Chicago today, and it was cold. It was cold.
Yeah. Your name is Paul, right?
Right.
Hi. Is the camper coming?
He's here.
Oh, okay.
He's here.
Oh,
So how are you doing?
okay.
Yeah.
Did you have a children's program here?
Yes, it's a children's program happening.
Oh.
Yes, the other child.
Oh, and the other, what did you do? What did
It's the
they?
Kiddush Club.
Oh,
I used to lead the Kiddush Club, but now I'm the altar rabbi that does the main service. The assistant rabbi. I'm feeling a little jealous right now, no offense. But I love that service. It's so fun.
Kiddush.
Kiddush Club, yeah. Very sweet for little kids. Yeah, I'm feeling really nice. How are ya?
Shabbat Shalom.
And whose yard side was it?
What?
Whose yard side was it?
I'm just looking general.
Oh, generally, okay. Very- If you like bike riding, it's a good place to be. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's so great. That's so great.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Winter's here. It's not here. It's here. It's not here. I'm so.
You think it was warm today, huh?
Well,
I guess
it
it was.
was.
I stood outside. I think when I was standing outside, so it was cold. I thought it was cold.
You weren't protected enough.
Thought I was. I guess, you know what? My blood is thinning.
This is cold in here, this is
Soon, hi.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's good to see all of you and to be back after being away for Thanksgiving. And I heard that last week's services were wonderful. And, you know, this time of year, there's always sort of this feeling of the light starts going away a little bit. You know, each and every day you see a little bit less light. But that's why it's so wonderful that we kindle the Shabbat candles, that we join together as community, that we sit together as friends and neighbors, and that's where we can find the light, even amidst the darkness. And so we're going to begin with a prayer, a blessing, of words that remind us of the beloved nature of community and the beloved nature of our relationship with each other and the relationship with God, which you can find on page 11 in your Siddur, as we join together in Dodi Li. And as we do, I'm going to invite Judy and Jim to step forward as they are going to have the honor of kindling our Shabbat candles and leading us in the Kiddush. So again, page 11, as we join together in Dodi Li.
ואני לא הרואה בשושנים דודי לי מי זאת עולה מי
now, Judy and Jim, if you would read the English, and we'll read along with you as we read responsively on page 3.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We sing together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And we turn now in our Siddur to page 5. And Jim, if you would lift up the Kiddush cup as we turn to words that remind us that our cups are certainly overflowing with blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim.
L'chaim. L'chaim. Thank you for bringing sweetness and light to our congregation and our community. How was it? It was pretty good? All right. Very good. Good confidence. Well, there is certainly sweetness, and sometimes that sweetness can be overwhelming too. And so we are going to now bring in the sweetness of Shabbat by welcoming the angels that, in our tradition, join us and accompany us on this day as we turn to Shalom Aleichem, which can be found on page 24. Page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mimelech malachei hamelachim, hakadosh baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, malachei hashalom, מלאכי מלאכי עליון ממלך מלאכי המלאכים הקדוש הקדוש ברוך הוא צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאכי מלאכי עליון ממלך מלאכי המלאכים הקדוש הקדוש ברוך הוא.
On page 25, we read together, or I'll read actually on all of our behalves, this text that comes from this week's Torah portion, Vayetze. And Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. Coming upon a certain place, he passed the night there, for the sun was setting. Taking one of the stones of the place, he made it his headrest as he lay down in that place. He dreamed, and lo, a ladder was set on the ground, with its top reaching to heaven, and lo, angels of God going up and coming down on it. And lo, Adonai stood up and above it, and said, I, Adonai, am the God of your father Abraham, and God of Isaac. The land on which you are lying I will give to you and to your descendants, and your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out to the west and the east and the north and the south. Through you and your descendants, all the families of the earth shall find blessing, and here I am with you. I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this soil. I will not let go of you, as long as I have yet to do what I have promised you. Waking from his sleep, Jacob said, Truly, Adonai is in this place, and I did not know it. He was awestruck and said, How awe-inspiring is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. We are now going to turn to the Chatzi Kaddish, which can be found on page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דרכו בית ישראל בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו Amen.
On page 27, we read responsively, Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. We now rise together as we turn to the call to worship, which can be found on page 28.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam.
We read together in the Hebrew on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, sader et hakochavim b'mishmertehem berakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We continue now on page 32 with Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah uvmitzvot, Chukim umishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, Bishoch beinu uvkumeinu, Bishoch beinu uvkumeinu, Nasiach bechukecha, V'nisach b'divrei Toratecha, U'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege, yomam v'halayla, ve'ahavatcha, al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo
We read responsively at the bottom of page 33, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works in the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. We turn now to the watchword of our faith, the Shema, on page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
We continue now on page 39, reading responsively at the bottom. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
מי כמוך פעלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים. זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We turn now to page 43, as we think of the sheltering presence of the divine in our lives, but also the sheltering presence that we need when we gather together as community and think about a world that we can best describe as broken. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth, prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. We continue now with Yismechu on page 44.
ישמחו במלכותך, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג. המקדשי שביעי, המקדשי שביעי, כולם ישבעו ויתענגו מטובך. ובשבי רצית בו וקידשתו, ובשבי רצית בו וקידשתו. חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה וראשית.
A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat arrives in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night. Eternity utters a day. We rise together now as we turn to the tefillah on page 46.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Lihibnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Micha molcha ba'al gevurot, Umito melach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalalucha sela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. We read responsively at the top of page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth.
May all who struggle find rest on this day.
May all who suffer find solace.
May all who hurt find healing on this day.
May all who despair find purpose.
May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day.
And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat. Page 56.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel Tehi leratzon, Tamid avodat Yisrael, Yisrael, Amen. אל קרוב לכל קוראיו פני אל עבדיך וחוננו שפוך רוחך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון.
If you listen carefully, you can hear our littlest members of our congregation in the other room running around for a kiddish club. And there is nothing like it. It's really fun to hear and to see those kids running around, and after they've prayed and worshiped together in the chapel, it reminds us to be grateful for the gifts that come our way. The Hoda'ah prayer that can be found on page 58 and 59, is a prayer that reminds us to be grateful for those gifts and those blessings in our lives. Blessing like an evening such as this, where you can hear the echoing of the future in the other room. An evening like this, where you can look up at the stars and see them twinkle and shine, and know that that light has been traveling to us for maybe centuries, and feel grateful for the gift of being able to gather together as community. And so if you have reason to be grateful, I invite you to read this reading with me at the bottom of page 59. When we behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and stars that you set in place, what are we humans that you are mindful of us? We mortals that you take note of us. You made us little less than divine, adorned us with glory and majesty. You gave us dominion over your handiwork, laying the world at our feet. How majestic is your name throughout the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shemcha u'cha na'eh lehodot. Continue now the prayer for peace on page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
Feels good to pray for peace, to pray for shalom, and also to pray for shalem, for wholeness, particularly for those members of our community who might be in need of a refuat nefesh or a refuat guf, a healing of spirit or a healing of body. Particularly in our hearts and minds, in our community, we're thinking of Shendel Bat Frida Malka, Julie Borikoff, Margot Raz, Carol Dubin, Samsara Viskaya, Sharon Rotman, Bob Radke, Lyle Rubel, Jean Bass, Steve Duplinsky, Myron Dvorkin, Esther Cohen, Lisa Firstad, Hachazan Sarah Rachel Beyocheved Alexander, Wendy Salzberg, Steve Plotkin, Avram Ben Naftali, Emma and Max, Doug Cruz, Carol Rovner, David Goldstein, Marilyn Harmon, Barry Bursack, Debbie Kelly, Raitza Tzvia Batshena Etta, Mary Frankowitz, Sophia Rubenstein, Alana Himmelfarb, Wendy Wiviet, Sue Weller, Yocheved Bat Rundel Vachayim, Avraham Bat Frida, Marla Chikowski, Michael Sychek, David Rotter, Natalie Cohen, Teresa Drews, Yona Neri Ben Avraham Vasara, Keith Mendel, Jamie Kryman, Isla Bat Natan Veshoshana, Mark Cook, Mark Berlin, Dr. Susie Mendelson, Audrey Rubin, Josh Boley, Michaela Hellenberg, Julie Austin, Jay Stearns, Moshe Ben Fagla Vasal, Marion Newman, Chris Gould, Yaakov Ben Alta, Howard Messerman, Michal Stroud, Marley Brooks, Audrey Kahn, Lisa Fiel, Marcy Brooks, Susan Garrison, Henya Fetterman, Ronnie Blecker, Raphael Ben Miriam. If there are names that should be added to this list or names that should be pronounced differently than I did, I invite you to hold those names in your heart as we turn to these words of tradition. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, the source of healing.
Mi sheberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imoteinu mikor habracha la'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
With these words of peace and wholeness still echoing in our hearts and minds, we take this time for silent meditation. Not so silent meditation.
יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
I should have said we take this time for not so silent meditation. It's nice to hear the voices of our children. If you have a Tanakh near you, you might want to grab one. We're going to do a little bit of a text study tonight. We're going to be looking into the Tanakh. And as you do, let me ask you, did you hear about the interview yesterday? Any of you heard about it? I find it difficult to believe that I'm about to say these words for those of you who don't know or haven't heard what I'm talking about. The artist formerly known as Kanye, along with an avid white supremacist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes, were guests on the notorious conspiracy theorist Alex Jones's show, a show in which, while it seemed Nick Fuentes was beside himself with pleasure as a hooded Kanye West continually praised Hitler and the Nazis, and Alex Jones appeared to be the voice of reason, truly proving that in the world of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And it was quite something. Unfortunately, for all of us, Kanye has a tremendous platform due to his popularity. And according to the Anti-Defamation League, we're witnessing a tremendous uptick in reports of harassment and vandalism and violence directed against Jews. And we're set to break records, since the records that were set since the establishment and monitoring of the ADL. And it's hard to believe, but we must take seriously that we are taking what seems to be a dark turn. And in this week's Torah portion also, Jacob is experiencing his own dark turn. Having fled from his home with the knowledge that Esau, his brother, would murder him, Jacob is leaving the land of Canaan, the land promised to him and his descendants. And Jacob is on the run. It's here that we pick up on the famous verses that we recited earlier, which you can follow along with on page 106, in the Chumash. I'll read it for you. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran, and he lighted upon the place. And I want you to remember that word, lighted upon the place, and tarried there all night, because the sun was set, and he took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, the ladder set upon the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and I will keep thee whithersoever thou goest, and I will bring thee back into the land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. And Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, How full of awe is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And Jacob rose up early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come back to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. That's chutzpah, by the way. And this stone, which I have set up for a pillar, shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. It's almost like Jacob's sort of negotiating at this point with God. If God does this, then I'll do that. The word that the Siddur and the Chumash translates as, coming upon in the Siddur, and here it's translated sort of as he lighted upon, is sort of an interesting one. Vayifgu, which is the Hebrew word, it shares the root of the word pegua. Has anybody ever shared the word peguach or pegua? In modern Hebrew, it's the word for terror. So if you ever, when in Israel, when there's a terrorist attack, people will talk about a pegua, which in modern Hebrew, that's what it means. So here we could render the verse that Jacob, in terror, passed the night there. In his life, it seemed as though the sun was setting. He was afraid. And then Jacob responded to that fear. And how he responded can be defining. Jacob was a dynamic character. He was a man that set out on his own path. Originally, he stayed by his mother and had none of the attributes of his brother Esau, who set out in the fields. His deception of his brother was even guided by his mother. But now Jacob is on his own, and we catch up to him in a moment of his fear and solitude, and he's running. It's no surprise. In fact, it's quite human. Through time and evolution, we human beings have developed a section of the brain known as the amygdala, which controls our flight or fight response. Here's how it's described by a psychology textbook. The fight or flight response is an automatic physiological reaction to an event that is perceived as stressful or frightening. And the perception of threat activates the sympathetic nervous system and triggers an acute stress response that prepares the body to fight or flee. And these responses are evolutionary adaptations to increase the chances of survival in threatening situations. Overly frequent, intense, or inappropriate activation of the fight or flight response is implicated in a range of clinical conditions, including most anxiety disorders. And the truth is, that response is one that we as a people know well as the Jewish people. Throughout our history, most often we have taken flight. In fact, I recently heard any Jewish person alive today is here because at some point one of our ancestors, in a moment of crisis, through deep anxiety about their situation, took flight. And Jacob takes flight. And it defines at this time who he is. Even as Jacob descends out of Israel, this vision of angels is a reminder that God would be with him, and he sets up a pillar to recognize the promise and the experience of God's presence in his flight. But that's not the only moment that Jacob takes flight. Later in this week's Torah portion, when Jacob is fleeing his father-in-law who is chasing him down, we have another moment of terror. Now, I'm going to do something I don't usually do, which is I'm going to read the entire chapter to you. So I'm going to invite you to open up or change the page to page 114. That's page 114. And chapter 31, verse 17. So find the 17. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon the camels. And he carried away all his cattle and all his substance which he had gathered, the cattle of his getting, which he had gathered in Padan Aram, to go to Isaac his father unto the land of Canaan. Now Laban was gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole the teraphim that were her father's. And Jacob outwitted Laban, the Aramean, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face towards the mountain of Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. And he took his brethren with him, and he pursued after him 7 days' journey, and he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. And God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream of the night, and said unto him, Take heed to thyself that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And Laban came up with Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountain, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mountain of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done that thou hast outwitted me and carried away my daughters as though captives of the sword? Wherefore didst thou flee secretly and outwit me, and didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with mirth, and with song, with tabret, and with harp, and didst not suffer me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Now hast thou done foolishly. It is in the power of my hand to you to do hurt, but the God of your father, or to do hurt, but the God of your father spoke unto me yesterday, or yesternight, saying, Take heed to thyself, that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now that thou art surely gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, wherever hast thou stolen my gods? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Lest thou shouldest take thy daughters from me by force. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, he shall not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the two maidservants, and he found them not. And he went out to Leah's tent, and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the teraphim, and put them in the saddle of the camel, and sat upon them. And Laban felt about all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, Let not my lord be angry, that I cannot rise up before thee, for the manner of woman is upon me. And he searched, but found not the teraphim. And Jacob was wroth, and strove with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin, that thou hast hotly pursued after me? And whereas thou hast felt about all the stuff which thou hast found of all thy household stuff, set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge between us. These 20 years have I been with you. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and their rams of the flocks have I not eaten. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. I bore the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day of my drought, consumed me in the frost by night, and my sleep fled from mine eyes. These 20 years have I been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been on my side. Surely now you have sent me away empty. God had seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and gave judgment yesternight. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, The daughters are my daughters, and the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that thou seest is mine. What can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children whom they have been born? And now come, let us make a covenant, an agreement, I and you, and let it be for a witness between me and you. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they did it there by the heap. I'm going to stop right there. I did my best to translate after a while out of this sort of somewhat archaic language. But what do you notice about this interaction between Laban and Jacob? Jacob's fleeing, he encounters Laban, and it's different from before. Something has happened. Is there any type of change that you notice? There really is so much to unpack in this chapter, isn't there? The deception upon deception, the stealing, the chase, the stealing between family members, all echoing previous chapters. But what's significant is that we have a moment in which, unlike the negotiation that took place between Jacob and God, that took place just chapters earlier, now we have a negotiation between Jacob and his pursuer, a dialogue and a discussion to reach a resolution. At first, Jacob runs from his pursuer, but now Jacob is dialoguing with his pursuer. There are moments as a community where we were forced to flee in our history. And if we didn't, we wouldn't have survived. There have also been moments of misunderstanding that have occurred between our community and others, and in those moments we entered into dialogue to try and resolve differences and move on in a way that was and is productive. But again, Jacob in his life has moments of challenge that will test his humanity. Moments in which we ask the question, will Jacob fight or take flight? I'm going to give you a foretaste of next week's Torah portion in the famous moment in which Jacob learns that Esau is coming and is bringing with him many men. It is natural for Jacob to be afraid, so he sends his dear ones away and camps for the night. And the tension that exists at this point is palpable. Will Jacob run? And suddenly, in the middle of the night, something mysterious happens. So if you would like to turn now in your Chumash, if you'd like to turn it to page 124, and let's look at verse 25. So page 124, verse 25. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was strained, and he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." And he said, "I will not let you go, except unless you bless me." And he said unto him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." And Jacob asked him and said, "Tell me, I pray you, my name." And he said, "Wherefore is it that you do ask after my name?" And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life was preserved. And the sun rose upon him as he passed over Peniel, and he limped upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not the sinew of the thigh vein, which is upon the hollow of the thigh unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, even the sinew of the thigh vein. And we're not going to get into who the mysterious person is. It's a lot of fun to decide or try to figure it out. Maybe it's God, maybe it's his brother, maybe it's his conscience. But let's continue. Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men, and he divided the children unto Leah, and to Rachel, and unto the two handmaids, and he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he himself passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children, and said, "Who are these with thee?" And he said, "The children whom God hath graciously given thy servant." Then the handmaids came near, they and their children, and they bowed down. And Leah and also her children came near and bowed down. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed down. And he said, "What meanest thou? What does this mean by all the camp which I met?" And he said, "To find favor in the sight of my Lord." And Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Let that which thou hast be yours." And Jacob said, "No, I pray thee, if now I have found favor in your sight, then receive my present at my hand. For as much as I have seen your face as one sees the face of God, and you were pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my gift that is brought to thee, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough." And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, "Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee." And he said unto him, "My Lord knows that the children are tender, and that the flocks and herds giving suck are a care to me. And if they overdrive them one day, all the flocks will die. So let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will journey on gently, according to the pace of the cattle that are before me, and according to the pace of the children. And I come unto my Lord unto Seir." And Esau said, "Let me now leave with thee some of what the folk that are with me." And he said, "What needeth it? Let me find favor in thy sight of my Lord." So Esau returns that day on his way to Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Sukkot, and built him a house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Sukkot. And Jacob came in peace to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram, and encamped before the city. And he brought the parcel of grounds that he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, and 100 pieces of silver, and he erected there an altar, and called it El Elohe Yisrael. It's a beautiful moment, isn't it, when they reunite? But it only comes to pass because Jacob is willing to confront the challenges that are before him, wrestling with something that seems insurmountable. And then he sets up a pillar and names it One who is El, God, the Holy One, blessed be God, is the God of me, whose name is Israel, Israel. And there are 3 pillars here, 3 responses to challenge and to fear and to terror. Look, I understand that these days seem dark and frightening, but we are the people Israel. Most of those who came before us were refugees who fled terrible events and terrible people throughout the world. America has been and must remain a safe haven, a pillar of security for those who are tempest-tossed. We can and should engage in dialogue because our goal must be to form a more perfect union between all those who would stand united in the sacred endeavor of nationhood. But it's also a time in which we must confront anti-Semitism wherever it may be, if we encounter it in our places of work or online or on the streets of our cities. We can't flee. We can't flee from our responsibilities or this country. Jacob continued to grow and change throughout his life. His was a journey that was not without pain or suffering. He limped along his path, imperfect in his actions and imperfect in his outcomes. But Jacob was willing to adapt and try again, to wrestle his way through the challenges of his day, and therefore merited the name Israel. And we are his spiritual inheritors. So let us be ready to stand for what we believe in, this nation that we hold dear, to stand for ourselves and whoever else is imperiled by hatred and intolerance. Then and only then can we set up a pillar of righteousness in our nation and our lives. And when we wake from our sleep and recognize what good has been accomplished, perhaps then we can say, as Jacob did, truly Adonai is in this place, and I did not know it. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are now going to turn in our Siddur to page 282. Andy, would you like to come up and open up the ark doors with me? We're going to turn to page 282 in our Siddur as we rise together for Aleinu. Prayer that reminds us that we bear certain responsibilities, but one of the most important ones is hope, right? Bayom hahu. And we pray that on a day that there will be a wholeness and a fulfillment and goodness that can exist within our world. Page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You may be seated. We turn now to memory, and our thoughts turn to those who have passed into life eternal. Particularly in our hearts and minds, we're thinking of these dear people who have passed into life eternal during the period of Shiva. We think of Audrey Kahn and Sterna Sarah Fetterman, and regret to inform the community of the passing of Marvin Tick. In addition to the names of those who we commemorate the period of Shiva, we think of those for whom we still mark the period of Shloshim. We think of Jennifer Carmona. In addition to those names, too, we think of all those who've died in seasons gone by for whom we mark their yahrzeit on this evening. And though they've passed in seasons gone by, we still feel their presence with us. We think of Elizabeth Abelson, Miriam Abrams, Louis Arnovitz, Rose Wheel Augenfeld, Alan Bernstein, Edith Chulak, Harry Cohen, Deanie Cohen, Gerald Emanuel, Carolyn M. Emold, Norman Esser, Nathan Faldberg, Norman Red Frank, Abraham Franklin, Martin Freeman, Harry N. Galst, Sylvan Goldstein, Lillian Gratch, Gwendolyn Greenwood, Dorothy Hancher, Harriet Hancher, Joe Hirschberg, Rose Holzman, Saul Israel, Rebecca Jacob, Belle Kaiser, Gertrude Kaiser, William Kaplan, Phyllis Kimmel, Stella Seidenfeld, Kohler, Marvin Levy, Jack Mahler, Muriel Louise McCurdy, Jack John Mechanic, Rose Milhendler, Jeffrey Naiman, Mayor Palais, Louise Pinsky, Ida Poland, Samuel Rubin, Harriet Rubnitz, Stephen Saperstein, Alfred Jack Sapiro, Joseph Schwartz, Sam Solomon, Gary Stein, Natalie Steinler, Bruce Sturkin, Edward Sweet, Ida Weinberg, Sarah Zaram, and David Ziegler. If there are names that should be added to this list or names that should be pronounced differently than I did, please do call those names out loud as I look in your direction. May his memory be a blessing. In addition to the names of our loved ones, so too do we think of all those who died due to war and or terrorism, all those who died in defense of this nation and allied nations' ideals. We think of all those who died due to this terrible virus that has stricken our nation and our globe, as well as the virus of racism and xenophobia. In addition to those names, too, we think of all those who died in the Holocaust. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we turn to words that are sanctified by memory, words glorified by hope. The Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, can be found on page 294. We rise together as one community to remember our loved ones with these sacred words. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shmei Rabbah, B'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mivorach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar v'yit alev v'yit halal Shmei d'kudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'yimru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. We always turn from sadness to joy. It's a joy to call upon Brent Arnold, our congregation president, to share some announcements on behalf of our congregation. Brent, what's the good news? What's going on in the congregation? Good stuff?
All kinds of good stuff.
Good.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's so good to see you all here tonight. I hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving and had the chance to spend some time with friends and with the family that you love. It was also really nice to have our annual Thanksgiving service again this year here at Shalom with our friends from the North Shore Presbyterian Church. Thanks to all the clergy that made it such a meaningful service. As winter is here, there are so many upcoming events and programs here at Congregation Shalom that will keep everyone staying warm and happy. It all starts tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with Shalom's Trivia Night for adults. We hope that you come with all your trivia knowledge. We will create teams and crown our new Shalom Trivia Champions. Our adult educational programming has started again on Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Join us for Intro to Judaism, as well as the new class called Israel in the Media. Shalom's Screen-Free Family Night takes a trip to the Admirals game on Saturday, December 17th at 6 o'clock to take on Rabbi Noah's hometown team, the Toronto Marlies. Is it Marley's? Canadians do know their hockey, what can I say? Then Hanukkah is right around the corner, so let's celebrate with cheese curds tasting. Join us on Wednesday night, December 21st at 6:30 for some delicious curds. Then our Hanukkah dinner and service will be on Friday night, December 23rd. December is a very busy month here at Congregation Shalom, but much more is to come in the month of January as well, including another movie night, a pancake breakfast, a presentation from Ben Marins on consumer protection, a Voices for Justice forum, Temple for Toddlers, and much more. Our 6th and 7th graders also have a great opportunity to participate in the class overnight retreat at Olin St. Ruby Camp. This is rescheduled for January 13th and 14th. Sounds like a lot of fun, so register online or see Brian Avner for more information. Remember, there is always our Saturday Torah study at 9 o'clock in the morning and our Shabbat service at 10 o'clock in the morning with a community lunch to follow after the service. Well, I hope you all enjoyed our service tonight, and I hope to see you more at all these upcoming events. Lastly, you should have recently gotten this letter. Yours was probably in color, but received this in the mail in the last day or so. It has a lot of photos on the other side, and we wanted to try and highlight a lot of great things going on here at Congregation Shalom. All of this great programming, along with our great staff and clergy, does take funding. If there is any opportunity for you to make a year-end contribution to Congregation Shalom, it would be really appreciated. Feel free to talk to Linda or myself about it as well. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you all have a wonderful Shabbat weekend. Thank you.
Yesher Koach, Brent. Cantor, what is our closing hymn for this Shabbat?
Our closing hymn for this Shabbat is on page 346 in the back of your Siddur. I'm not going to give it away yet. I'll wait for everybody to turn. 346. Oh, I have the right page. Don't you worry. In the middle of the page, V'taher libenu, purify our hearts to serve you in truth. V'taher libenu. We sing together.
Please rise.
V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu le'avdecha be'emet. V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu le'avdecha be'emet. La 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 V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu le'avdecha be'emet. V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu le'avdecha be'emet.
We conclude with these words of peace. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's hard to understand. All right. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I'm very hungry. I made the mistake of having.
Just sign it.
I did already.